I'm Kari, and I'm a licensed funeral director and embalmer, and I'm doing this video today because I want to encourage you and empower you and educate you on making arrangements at a funeral home. So whether you came to this video out of curiosity or just to get some information, I want you to walk away after watching this a little more prepared to make arrangements. If you've come here to the video because you have lost somebody and you are getting ready to go to the funeral home, my thoughts are with you, and hopefully things go a little more smoothly by watching this video and getting yourself prepared. So let's get started. Now, the first step in this process is actually setting a time for your arrangement. Whether the death occurs at a hospital, at a nursing home, in your home, or any other place, what will happen is either the staff that comes to bring your loved one into the care of the funeral home will set that time when they are there with you, if you are present, or you'll receive a call within a few hours normally, or in the morning if the death occurs at night, from the funeral home, and they will set a time for you to come in and meet with a funeral director or an arranger to make those funeral arrangements. Now, they may also give you a list of items to bring with you. In the workbook that I'm going to give you a link for, a lot of those things are listed out. A lot of the information they're going to need is listed out. But look at that checklist that they give you, if they do, and make sure you get as much or as many of those items together to bring with you to the arrangement. There are reasons for this. Even if you don't understand why the director is asking you for those, there are reasons. So try and bring them with you. Before we get into what exactly you're going to be bringing to your arrangements, I want to give you just a short little pep talk about going into the arrangements and the mindset to try and put yourself in. Now, you may have decided with your loved one what type of service you want to have. That is a good thing to have. That is a good plan to have in place. But when you go into that arrangement, have an open mind. Listen to all your options as well, because might be ideas or situations or setups that you did not know were available or that you did not know were options. So you can take that plan you made with your loved one and maybe expand it or tweak it so that it fits what your loved one wants and what you want. So have an open mind. Have trust, blind trust in that funeral director that you're meeting with. They do this for a living, so they know more than you do. They know more than your helpful friends that have been, giving you information do. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth. So you need to listen to the professionals in a situation where it's not something you do every day. When you walk into the funeral home, what should you expect to see in an arrangement room? Well, every funeral home has a different setup. Some have like this, where it's a couch and coffee table and more of a living room setup. However, some funeral homes have a conference table where there's a lot of chairs sitting around the table, a little more business style. Or you may have a desk that the funeral director or arranger sits behind, and then chairs out around that. So every setup is a little different, and each has their pros and cons. You may be offered coffee or soda or water or just something to drink. There may be muffins or donuts if you're there in the morning. There may be candy. There may be throat lassenger type candy, like the little butterscotches. Or there may be cookies. So every funeral home is a little different. It's hard to know what to expect. But feel free, if you need a certain soda, bring it with you. Or if you need a certain coffee, bring it with you. Feel free to bring with you what is going to help you during that time period. And that might be a comfort food or drink for you. So I have had people come and bring mimosas in the morning because that's just what their mom would have wanted them to do. So you can think outside the box a little bit, but also know the restrictions of the funeral home, if they allow certain things in the funeral home or not. Who to bring. When you head in to go to make your arrangements, sometimes you want to surround yourself with as many support people as you can. But the more people you bring, the more opinions you're going to have interjected, and the more confusing it may get. So bring just the key players to the arrangement. So if you've lost your spouse, then bring your children, Try not to bring the little grandchildren. They're great to have around. They fill your heart. They keep you warm during this time, but they are a distraction during the arrangement conference. So if you can, leave the little ones at home. Bring your main people, the main people who are going to be in charge of finances, the order of service, the main decisions you need to make. So if you don't have family and friends, make sure you bring someone with you. Bring someone that's just going to help you hear the information, and later when you're like, oh, what did they say? They can help remind you of maybe things that were discussed during the arrangement conference. So bring a close friend, bring someone from church, bring an extended family member, just bring someone to be there with you during that time, just to help you process some of the information. Because even if this death that has occurred was, foreseen and it was planned and you knew it was coming, you are still in a fog. You are still going to be a little scatterbrained. You still may be sleep deprived, food deprived, and just very distracted. So have some support around you, but limit who comes. Do not bring everybody. I've made arrangements with 30 people in the room, and it is hard to stay focused. It is hard to make the decisions. It's hard to get to the end point. And as the funeral directors and arrangers, we don't want you to be spending 4 or 5 hours at the funeral home. We want to accomplish what we need to accomplish and get you home to your comfortable setting, get you home to get you rested and surrounded by that large mass of family and friends. So what are some of those items that you need to bring with you to the funeral home? There's 3 main pieces of items that you may be asked to bring. One is going to be clothing. Even if your loved one's going to be cremated, you can still dress them in a special outfit or something for a private viewing, or even if the funeral home requires you do an identification time with your loved one, you can still have them dressed in something special. So you may still be asked to bring clothing, and that is why. If you are going to have a visitation and burial, things to remember about the clothing that you bring. Make sure to bring a higher neckline, just because there will be an incision from the embalming, and if there was an autopsy performed, things of that, there'll be even more incisions that we want to just make sure are covered by the neckline of the clothing. Also, long-sleeved clothing, especially if your loved one was in the hospital and had IVs in their hands or their arms. There's going to be bruising, and there's going to be those small puncture marks from the IVs that may need to be bandaged, covered. And so bringing long sleeve clothing, a normal to higher neckline, are the best things to bring. And yes, they do need pants. We get asked that question a lot. Just because the casket does come to the midline of somebody, we do need pants. I always tell people, bring whatever they would put on in a normal day. So undergarments, shirt, pants, skirts, whatever it is. Shoes are optional. I like to always have socks on people. My feet are always cold, so it's just in my mind that I want to make sure people's feet are covered, but it's totally up to you what you want your loved one dressed in. But bring all of that to the funeral home, and so that they can dress your loved one. Now the second item is a photo. You may be asked to bring photos for the preparation, just so they have a recent photo of what the person looked like. Maybe a couple weeks before death or a couple months before death, but a photo from 30 years ago doesn't always help us to prepare your loved one, because their weight is going to be completely different, their face structure is different, their hairstyle is typically different. So try and bring a more recent photo for the preparation. We also need a photo for the newspaper or the online website. Any of those items that you want a photo included in, we'll need a photo for. You may also be asked at that initial arrangement to bring photos for a video. They may do a memorial video for the visitation or for the online platform or for the service. Sometimes if the service is going to be kind of happening quickly, they may need those photos right away to start scanning them, editing them, and working on that video. Otherwise, you may have a day or so following the arrangement to gather those photos and bring them back to the funeral home. Now the third item category that you're going to be asked to bring items for is biographical information for the death certificate. Check out that workbook I was talking about to get the list of all the biographical information, but full name, parents' names, birth date, social security number. So if you bring, in terms of paperwork, bring insurance paperwork, a DD-214, which is a discharge from the service, a birth certificate, a marriage license, and the social security card of the person. That is important because the death certificate goes by exactly how the person's name is on their social security card. And they may never go by how that name is on that social security card, but in order for the social security number to match up for the death certificate, they have to match exactly. So if you bring all of the paperwork with you, the funeral director will then have what they need to get the death certificate after a few days. And it does take several days to get a death certificate. You will not be getting that when you walk in for arrangements. And so bringing this information allows them to get you that death certificate more quickly. The discharge paper allows the funeral director to get the veterans benefits, the flag, burial benefits, things of that nature for you with that discharge paper. And then the insurance paperwork allows them to help apply for the death benefits for you through the insurance companies. And they can help you walk through those process, and you may want to be using that insurance to pay for the funeral as well. During your time together making the arrangements, you are going to be writing an obituary if you want one run in the newspaper or just to be placed online even, because sometimes running it in the newspaper is a little costly and it's not something you want to put money towards. So when you go into the arrangement, if you have written out all the names of your family members that you would want included in the obituary, any important information that you want included, it helps the funeral director if that is all written out or spelled out exactly. Sometimes you even want to pull up obituaries from your area online and kind of write out a mock or a mimicked one to the format that your local newspaper uses. If you do that, try and put that obituary, if you've typed it up, on a flash drive to bring to the funeral home, because that allows the funeral director to pull it right up on their computer rather than retyping everything, or even email it over to the funeral director during the arrangement. I know with technology now you can do it right from your phone and email it over to them, or have someone that's at home get on the computer and email it over to them, and it just shortens that time period that you're there making the arrangements because they don't have to retype everything. Now, as I talk about technology, it is very handy to have your phone when you need to call maybe the pastor or a loved one to coordinate times and days and everything. However, your phone is going to be blowing up with people wanting to get in touch with you and find out information, and especially if the death was from an accident or a sudden death, you are going to be getting Facebook notifications and emails and messages and texts like crazy. So, as I've said, lowering distractions is really important during the arrangement. Try for that 1-2 hours that you're at the funeral home, or 3 hours, to put your phone aside, have it handy if you need it, but put it aside, turn off the ringers. The one good thing though I will say about technology is maybe one of the children can't be there, so you FaceTime them in during the arrangement and allow them to be part of it. Or I've had people that maybe one of the kids is driving and they haven't been able to get there yet because they live so far away, and we've put them on speakerphone so that they could be part of the arrangement and give their insights and give their memories during the arrangement time. And so technology is useful, but it can be a huge distraction and break up the rhythm of that arrangement if you're picking up phone calls constantly. And this includes everybody in the arrangement conference. So if you do have that large group of 30 people, you've got people all over the place on their phones and getting you distracted from making the core decisions that you need to make while you are in the arrangement room. Now, every funeral director does arrangements in a little different order, but here are some of the information you're going to be covering and things you're going to have to make decisions on while you're making arrangements. So you're going to go over all the biographical information of your loved one. This is for the death certificate and the obituary. Second, you're going to do a layout of the services for the visitation, the service, the viewing, the private viewing, the burial time, and you may not be doing some of these steps, but if they are included, you'll need to figure out when you're doing them so everybody is on the same page. You can write down the times, or maybe the funeral director will write down all those times for you. So over the course of the next week, you know exactly where you need to be and when. You'll write the obituary possibly if you're going to be having an obituary, and before you leave you want to proofread it. Make sure you read and you see what exactly is going in the newspaper. You're paying good money if it's going in the newspaper, so make sure you have proofread it yourself or somebody within your core group has proofread it for the funeral home. You may go into a selection room, which could mean going and selecting a casket, going and selecting the urn or the vault. You're going to encounter sometimes the full caskets in the casket selection room, but a lot of funeral homes have also transitioned over to what's called corner cuts, and this is a small piece of the casket actually. So you can still touch and see the color, but it's just a smaller portion so that they can have more options on hand in one room for you to see in person. So many options for urns. So often you're going to go and you'll see some in person, but there'll be catalogs upon catalogs. I know a lot of people do a lot of online shopping for urns, and so there's so many options out there, and there's online shopping for caskets as well. So, you know, kind of see what your funeral home has and what the options are, and explore outside as well if you would like. But, you know, keep your options open, as I've said, for what your funeral home has to provide. You'll also be asked to look at and select printed material. This may be folders or register books or thank you notes or bookmarks. There's so many options of things that you can have done, created, and add to the experience at the funeral home. You may have a loved one within your family who's in graphic design and wants to create those items for the funeral. And so they can bring those items with them to pass out. You do not have to purchase it from the funeral home. The funeral home is just set up to do those things in a quick fashion and to print them on demand. And so sometimes the time and effort and the cost is actually more beneficial to have the funeral home do it than sometimes having your family do it, because it's just a time crunch pressure that they don't always want. So pros and cons both ways on those items. Should also then, when you have gotten into the arrangement, been given a general price list. The FTC, or Federal Trade Commission, regulates this. So if you watched my Know Your Rights video, when you walk in, you should be given this general price list, which has all of your pricing spelled out for you. Do not hesitate to say, could I just have a moment to look over this pricing? Or as you're going through the arrangement, ask the funeral director to keep a running tally of the items and the services that you are accumulating, so you can see where you're at as you go along, rather than at the end of making decisions, all of a sudden there's this huge price tag. So if you watch as you go along, you can gauge your choices and your selections according to if you have a specific price or you have a certain amount of insurance money. That way you stay within your budget, you stay within a comfortable figure for yourself. When you walk into the selection room also, caskets should all have pricing on them, or you should be given a casket price list. Same with the vaults, same with urns. Prices should be available for you on all the items you're looking at all times. If they're not posted, ask for them, and you have to be given a list or a product pricing guide on these things for you to retain if you want to retain it. A few items that will appear on your final bill that you get at the funeral home and that you're going to see at the arrangement conference are your cash advance items. And these are things that you may not know are going to be included at the funeral home and that actually go into that final expense. So when you hear, oh, funerals are 8 to 10,000. That's not just the funeral home costs, that's all these outside costs that are called cash advance items. And these are items that the funeral home pays out on your behalf on the day of the service. So that way you only have to write one check or make one payment to the funeral home, and they will pay all these other vendors essentially for the day of the service. And this may include cemetery costs. So either the purchase of the cemetery plot, the opening and closing of the cemetery plot, your church costs. So even if you belong to a church, there may be fees the day of the service. The pastor, the organist, the luncheon, a rental fee for the church. There's several different costs. The church ladies make charge to put on the luncheon. There's organist, pianist, sometimes a sound person, so a soloist. There's a lot of different people at the church that may need paid, and they don't do it at no cost always. And they may not tell you as a family this, but they tell us as a funeral home that they would like payment for these things. Flowers. So you may be able to order your flowers right at the funeral home. They may have a book for your local florist that you can pick out flowers for the casket spray or boutonnieres or a family piece, whatever it is that you would like. Or you may go to a local florist and then have that charge put on the funeral home's bill. So have a discussion about that, or ask about it if the funeral director does not include it in your discussion. Luncheon cost. So your funeral home may have a luncheon facility right there on site, and so they will have catering information and lunch information for you, but you may have a luncheon, let's say the VFW hall or an American Legion hall. They can include the charge for that on their bill so that they pay that to them as well. The vault company fee. So the vault company you purchase the vault, but then there's also a setup fee for the vault company. The set and seal of the vault, the tent, the chairs, depending on what level of setup you want, it's a different charge. So that also goes on there. The obituary charge. So whatever your paper charges for the obituary will then be placed on there. And that's not a charge to write the obituary. That is just exactly what the newspaper charges. So if it's $350 to run the obituary, they're going to put $350 on your bill at the funeral home. One last fee or item that you may see on your bill that you may go, why is that there, is the insurance assignment fee. So a lot of funeral homes are now charging a insurance processing fee for the insurance assignment. So this is when you bring your life insurance and you use that to pay for the funeral. They'll do an insurance assignment. So you assign the portion of your insurance to pay the funeral home, and then the rest goes to the beneficiary. So some funeral homes are charging $50 or $100, something like that, for this fee because of the labor hours that go into getting these processed. Sometimes it takes 2, 3, 4 hours of phone calls and paperwork to actually get one insurance policy processed. It is becoming more and more progressively a longer task to take on. And so there is a processing fee. And along with that too, when you're paying with insurance assignment, sometimes it takes 90 days for an insurance company to pay. Your funeral home that you're working with is fronting you all the money for those cash advance items for up to 90 days. That's kind of like they're acting like a lending agent for you for 90 days for sometimes $3,000-$4,000 worth of cash advance items. So keep that in the back of your mind too. That's why there's that $50, $100, or whatever it may be processing fee, because there's a lot of time and energy that goes into the insurance processing. There is a lot of information to know about making arrangements. However, as you're walking through, your funeral director and arranger are going to help you with this, and they're going to walk with you through this process and hopefully give you the information that you need. But knowing some of this information going in, you can ask some better questions, and you can ask for things that you didn't know were available before this video. So a few last things to make sure you ask and to kind of know are available. So ask for photo boards. Your funeral home may provide those. They may be the trifold or styrofoam boards that you can keep, or they may be pin boards that you need to, create the board and then take it down and leave the board with the funeral home when it's done. So there's different options that funeral homes have, and a lot of the funeral homes I know do not charge for that. It's something they just give for each family when they need them. Ask for video availability and hookup. So you may have photos that you can just plug in the flash drive of photos and it may just run on their TV where you don't even have to create a video. Or maybe someone in your family is creating the video and you just want to bring it in and put it in their computer or in their TV. Make sure you know what the hookup is for that or what format they need to be in. All too often I've had people bring in a video and we go to play it and it doesn't work because it was not the right format, or the DVD player just didn't play the version of the disc that they burned it on. So have the person creating the video contact the funeral home and connect to make sure that video actually works. Ask if there's a space for children to hang out. Is there a coloring area? Is there a place for them to do a video? What is available at the funeral home when you go for children that may be there? What refreshments are offered or allowed? Are there packages that you can purchase, a coffee and a cookie package to have for guests when they come? Or does the funeral home offer snacks and coffee and water for guests that come in? Or can you bring those things in? Some funeral homes don't allow you to bring outside food just because of health codes, but make sure you know what is available from that funeral home. I have too many times had where a funeral home does not allow this, but a helpful friend told the family that they could bring all their own stuff in, and they showed up with food and drinks that they wanted to provide out for the guests, and they were not allowed to set them out because the funeral home did not allow it. So sometimes information from helpful friends is not always the correct information. So communicate with the funeral director and the funeral home you're working with. One last big tip when you walk into arrangements is do not walk in with having times and service things all set up, because the funeral home may not be able to accommodate the times and the days that you set with the church and that you set within your family. So we have encountered where people have walked in already having posted days and times on their Facebook pages, and it did not work with the actual funeral home schedule or with the cemetery or the church schedule, and so they had to go and backpedal, and then people had already gotten the incorrect information. And so don't set times, don't post times until you actually do that with the funeral home. They are there to walk you through this process and to help you with this. Let them be your guide. Let them be your partner during this phase and during this part of your life, because they are the professionals. Trust them, lean on them, let them guide you through this. I know it's all too easy to go in and want to just be in control and do things for your loved one because that's what you feel compelled to do. But you have to work along with the funeral home to do that. So trust in them, have faith in them, let them walk with you during this time. I hope that this video has educated and empowered you on some of the things you're going to need and do during arrangements. As always, if you have questions, post them below or feel free to email me. My email will be at the end of the video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Make sure you like the video. Thank you. Bye.